Lightyear expands the Toy Story franchise into a science fiction adventure starring the iconic Space Ranger, introduced in the 1995 film. The premise is intriguing. This film is the one that Andy saw that made him want a Buzz Lightyear action figure for his birthday. But does Pixar's newest release work as a standalone feature? Let's find out. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and talk about a movie we've watched that is really that simple. Possibly we give some insight, maybe a few jokes along the way. Good jokes?
Oh, don't promise that.
Bad jokes, okay. Bad jokes it is. Today we're going to talk about Lightyear, which is the kind of spin-off to the Toy Story franchise. It's the fifth movie in the Toy Story universe, if you want to call it that. Although technically it's not in the universe per se, it's a piece of fiction that exists within the Toy Story universe. So we'll get into it, but yeah, so it's a movie about the actual Buzz Lightyear, who's not a real person in Toy Story, but he is a movie character in Toy Story. That's what the toy's based on. And that's what the premise of this movie is this is the movie that Andy from Toy Story saw when he was a kid that made him want a Buzz Lightyear. Which is convoluted to explain. I actually don't think it's a stupid idea when you actually stop and just think about the simplicity of it. But we'll get into all that. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. Buzz Lightyear, of course, from Toy Story is, presented as this astronaut, this action hero. He's got the wings, he's got the laser blaster, all that stuff. This movie, he starts with some of those things, maybe get some of them later on, but I genuinely didn't know what the premise, outside of it being him, what the story of this movie was going to be. I knew nothing, and I'd sort of seen the trailer at some point, but I don't even think the trailer either told me or I'd forgotten everything that was in the trailer. So I went into this fairly blind, and it was a bit of a discovery of what the movie actually is beyond just the broad concept of it's the Buzz Lightyear fictional movie from Toy Story. So okay, that's where we go. So yes, I guess I'll just ask the question. Well, there's no reason I didn't delete it. Actually, before I ask the question, I'll say this. What were your thoughts when this was like announced, or you heard about it via the trailer or the casting, whatever it was?
I think I had heard that, it was going to be a movie based on the actual Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story universe. So I was thinking that Buzz Lightyear was a real astronaut or something in the universe that Toy Story existed in. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I had a hard time wrapping my brain around it. I was surprised that it wasn't going to be Tim Allen. I remember that being interesting, and I was surprised that it was Chris Evans. But I will say, when the trailer came out, it looked great. I loved the trailer a lot. The first trailer I thought was incredible. And, I've been going to the movies a lot more this past year, and I feel like it's been playing every single time I went to the theater. So I was still hyped up for it when it was all the way up to the release.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to feel about this as an idea, and I hadn't seen Toy Story 4 yet. I actually did watch Toy Story 4 the day before I saw this, just to not that it was going to matter, not that it was going to be references because of the way the premise worked, but I felt on principle I should be caught up in Toy Story before I see Lightyear. And it's such a weird idea that, in the one hand, I can look at it cynically and say, oh, you want to find another way to milk one of your sort of your biggest Pixar cash cow, which is Toy Story. And in that level, I'm kind of like, okay, at least it's something different. It's a bit of a weirder, wackier idea to do it with, as opposed to just doing some sort of Toy Story 5, or whatever that could be after Toy Story 4. But it's very odd. But I mean, I will say that before we finally just ask the basic did we like it question in a second, I will say this, going in, there was a lot of lukewarm to negative buzz. No pun intended. Mm-hmm. The Rotten Tomatoes score is not super high. The IMDb average rating's like a 5.1. It's not firing off. And admittedly, the IMDb rating might be less genuine good faith, like people just rating the movie and how they feel, and maybe an angry or sick to the world or upset that there's a gay character in a Pixar movie, and that you have to kind of account for that bullshit. But it underperformed at the box office relative to, you know, past Toy Stories and Pixar movies and things like that. It came in at number 2 in the US. I noticed in the UK it came in at number 3, under both Maverick and Jurassic World.
Yeah, Top Gun's still doing it, huh?
Yeah. In fact, Top Gun, I believe, is only the 4th movie in history to make over, was it either 40 or 50 million domestic in its 4th weekend. But it was, it was like, I think the first to do it was Avatar by quite a margin.
I think that's interesting because I can't imagine it. Top Gun Maverick, it's such an American film. I can't imagine doing great outside of the US, but it is quite a spectacle to watch. So maybe people are just going for that.
It's doing well.
And because Tom Cruise, I'm sure, brings in tickets even outside the US too.
Yeah, I've not seen Maverick yet, but I will say this: like, there's a thing that plays. I'm sure you have an equivalent, but there's a thing that plays at my theatre chain specifically where it says it's like they'll do like a fluff piece in the middle where it's sponsored by a brand of something, but they'll do like red carpet interviews, and it's basically, instead of being like a trailer, it's like more of a snippets of a trailer with some like, fluff interviews with the cast and director or whatever for a movie. And the thing they were hyping up when the Maverick one plays was just how, like, they did a lot of filming with real jets, there's some real stunt work, despite the fact that you'd assume it'd be all CG. And I do have to wonder that if we're finally at a point where people are so used to and perhaps sick of CGI in movies, especially when a lot of the biggest movies are sort of like kind of half-assing it, looking at you, Marvel, I wonder if the appeal of just like, no, Tom Cruise is in movies where he does stunts and there's like stuntmen doing extreme crazy things. I wonder if that's part of the spectacle of it. But regardless, yes, so Lightyear, I mean, it hasn't bombed dramatically, but it's definitely relatively, kind of been iffy.
I was upset when I saw the ratings going in because I was kind of hyped for this one.
Yeah. And I think the other theory you could also throw out there, just in terms of Pixar, is that the last couple Pixar movies went straight to Disney Plus, and there's a possibility that a lot of people are like, "Oh, you've trained me now to expect Pixar for free, effectively on Disney Plus."
Oh, interesting. I never considered that.
Yeah, because Turning Red went straight to Disney Plus. Was it Luca?
So good.
Went
Luca
to Disney
did,
Plus. Yeah. I think Soul might have went to Disney Plus as well.
Yeah, that's true. That happened. And I guess, it was Onward Pixar? That came out in theaters, but that happened right before the pandemic.
That was right before the pandemic. That was like right before everything shut, if I remember right.
Yeah, I just remember when the pandemic hit, like we had Onward billboards for like a year and a half.
So I do wonder if that's also another reason for it, is that enough of the still it made some money. It's not like it didn't make anything, but just enough of the audience have been conditioned. And let's face it, some people have still not went back to movies, right? Some people got used to, maybe they've also got, they're immune compromised or whatever.
Maybe kids' movies are harder to do in theaters since so much is being offered on Disney Plus.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons to why maybe enough people said, no, that's a Disney Plus movie. So even if I have to wait 2 extra months, that's fine. I'll wait 2 extra months and we'll get it on Disney Plus. And all those things compound, and then you got a lukewarm opening. So it was a bit of a weird atmosphere going into this, because usually with Pixar, like, I'm not necessarily one that gets super excited easily for animated movies, but Pixar tends to have enough, like, oh, this is excellent, like, everyone's praising it, but this wasn't being praised by everyone. This was, like I say, it was middling, it was lukewarm. So I was very curious to see what it was going to be. So I'll ask the question, Tara. I guess try and keep away from the plot, because the plot's actually really weird and different from what I expected. So we'll get into that probably more in spoilers, but so just generally, how did you feel about Lightyear?
Well, I mean, I'll say that it's a lot more adult than I was expecting. The themes are like, it's, which I guess I should expect from Pixar by now, but I could see this not being a great hit for the kids while watching it. But I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a really fun science fiction film with a cool concept, and it reminded me of a kind of a lot of sci-fi films that we've watched in recent years. And, the the characters are fun. They're actors that I enjoy, and I thought it was pretty good. And to respond to something you said earlier about like they're trying to milk the cash cow. If you have opened the Disney Plus app, they've been milking that cow for a while. The Toy Story one, because there are animated shorts and TV shows and stuff like that. And one of them, I believe, is the Buzz Lightyear animated show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem I have with Disney as a whole. Like everything that they've got, they're milking like incessantly. So
yeah, I mean, even before the Disney Plus app, there have been other movies that they've released on Blu-ray and stuff, like a Halloween special and things like that from Toy Story. And yeah, there have been animated shows, including a Buzz Lightyear one, where I always imagined that was Andy's like way into Buzz Lightyear was the cartoon show that was also sort of part of that world. But I kind of like the idea of having a more mature Buzz Lightyear movie that Andy went and saw in the 90s, and then like kind of like not quite like RoboCop level, but still a kid's like, I'm attached to this thing that's clearly for adults.
Oh no, it's definitely not RoboCop.
And getting the toys and getting all the spin-off shows and
I'm
cartoons.
just gonna get it out here now. Lightyear is not on the same level as maturity as RoboCop. I just want to put that out there for everyone.
I kind of already said that, but like, yeah.
Like there's no like snorting coke off a hooker or anything like that.
Yeah, but like when you're a kid, you're like, whatever, get to the robot parts, right? So. But anyway, I did actually enjoy this movie quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it's as good as any of the Toy Story movies, but it's still like it's not it's not as bad as like all the critics are saying, or the reviews, I should say.
Yeah, I thought the movie's fine, which is I think it's not great. It's definitely not bad. I'd say it's more than just okay, but not any more than fine. Which is, I guess, to say that it feels like an amalgamation of a lot of sci-fi movies and tropes, and there's some weird choices made with the plot. Some of it does feel oddly mature for like a kid's movie, but I'm not a kid, so that doesn't really matter to me that much. I don't really care that too much about that specifically. That's more of just an objective like discussion point than it is anything that actually affects my enjoyment. I think for me, it's just like I think when I got to the end of the movie, the premise of this being this is the movie that Andy saw that made him want a Buzz Lightyear. I kind of I sat and thought, I don't know if I buy it. I don't know if this movie was good enough to make Andy obsessed with Buzz Lightyear.
I think it would have been like he probably would have brought us socks home with him, maybe not a Buzz Lightyear doll.
It's kind of odd because like you expect it to be this space opera with Buzz Lightyear at the center of it, and it actually is all centered on one planet. And there's kind of a realization like in the first like 15-20 minutes where you're like, wait, I think this whole movie's going to be here. Like we're never going to leave here. This is going to be all based here. And there was actually something you said to me after you saw it before I did, which is there's a lot of the Lost in Space movie in this, and I was like, that's not a good sign. What does she mean by that? And sure enough, like we'll get into it in spoilers, but yeah, there's a lot of the Lost in Space movie from 1998 in this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've seen that movie since like early 2000s, but like once I watched this film, I'm like, wait a second, I've seen this before.
Yeah, there's a lot of wild swings in it, which I kind of appreciate in some ways, but at the same time, it also feels a lot more. It feels a lot more. I don't want to use the word generic because I think generic's too harsh. But when you think of Toy Story, right, and even with Toy Story 4, which I just watched before I watched this, it felt like they were somehow finding ways to say really interesting things with this absurd premise of toys that come to life when you're not looking, and. Every single Toy Story movie has done that, dealing with loss, dealing with moving on, dealing with, whatever, right? Whatever it may be. And every single one has done that. Whereas it kind of felt like with this, it's kind of the problem I have with a lot of big franchise stuff that gets made now, is that someone says, this is a great idea, let's do this Buzz Lightyear movie that's, the movie that Andy saw. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool idea. But then I watched the movie, and that's not to say that there's no message in here. It's not to say that they don't try to do something interesting with like Buzzy's character arc, because they do, but it feels a lot more just like typical in a lot of ways. This doesn't necessarily feel like Pixar made this. I know they did, and I know obviously it's Pixar created Buzz Lightyear and everything, but it doesn't really feel like a Pixar movie to me. It feels like just like a DreamWorks movie, and no shade to DreamWorks, okay? I don't mean that in a backhanded way, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it has that. Like I think Turning Red was a better movie than this. And
oh yeah, that's a perfect film.
And in Turning Red, like it felt like it was doing so much. Like there was so many layers to the analogies that it was forming throughout its story and what it was doing with puberty and what the red panda represented, and all the payoff to everything at the end of that movie really capitalized, and you felt like the character really went through this coming of age story. So much of this because Buzz starts off kind of like he's already Buzz Lightyear, he's already a space ranger, and you have to start in this kind of place where they have to kind of set up his problems and like what he has to learn and what he's going through, and then the plot is actually quite complicated to get to the point where he's ultimately learning these lessons and accepting certain things. It's like there's some noble ideas in there, but ultimately it does kind of feel a little bit. It feels a little like by the end of the movie I was sort of thinking to myself, that was perfectly fine, but I really don't feel like it ever kind of said this is why this had to exist, because someone had this great idea for a story to tell through Buzz Lightyear and what he represents or anything like that. Whereas because I was worried Toy Story 4 was going to feel that, because I thought Toy Story 3 had the perfect ending, and in many ways I still think it did, but Toy Story 4 managed to tell us a story that felt unique to the characters, and it felt like it made sense after what all the other films went through. So lo and behold, it became a quadrilogy, not a trilogy, and that's fine.
And we got Forky, and Forky's great.
Forky's
and Duke Kaboom.
Oh, okay, yes. You bet I Canada or whatever it was he said. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Duke Kaboom was alright. Honestly though, creepy Gabby and the dolls, that was more my thing. A bit of horror movie for a minute in the middle of it, and I was kind of into that. But anyway, so yeah, it kind of feels like I don't know. It does feel like a sort of standalone spin-off that might never go anywhere, and it doesn't. Not that it has to go somewhere, but it feels like a standalone spin-off in the same way. And I never saw this, but I kind of feel the same way about this after seeing it as I did about when I saw trailers for Solo, the Star Wars movie, where I just kind of feel like, oh, this exists because they want to make more of this, and but I don't really see the point of it. And I got to the end of this, and it certainly wasn't bad, but I still kind of feel like it was ultimately a bit pointless.
Do you think they sort of followed the trend of, the messages of the films as, they came out later and later, and the fans got older and older? Do you think they're still kind of following that trend where it doesn't feel like a movie that young Andy in 1995 would watch? It feels like maybe Father Andy would watch in 2021, whatever year we're in.
2022, as a matter of fact.
I never have to write the date down anymore, so I don't know. How does time work?
Yeah, I think it doesn't really succeed at being either. Is the weird thing. Like I think if we're going to keep taking the lessons that are learned about growing up and moving on and all the things that Toy Story have done really effectively, like I don't necessarily think this feels like the next stage of that story or that like type of thought process. But at the same time, I don't think it feels like the movie that Andy saw when he was 5 either, or whatever age he was in Toy Story, because. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but effectively what you kind of expect is like this was Andy's Star Wars, so you're expecting more of a planet trotting type of space adventure kind of thing, and instead you get Lost in Space 1998.
You do get Lost in Space, which I liked when it came out.
Yeah,
except for the monkey. I hated that monkey.
The other sort of complaint I would maybe levy at it is I do think some of the comedy doesn't work. There's definitely There's a few moments, and they're very similar moments actually, where the joke is kind of playing out and characters are like waiting for someone to like, because like, for example, early on there's a moment where Buzz is like sort of effectively not getting something and he keeps monologuing and he just won't listen to the other character, and it's meant to be funny and he just keeps going on, and I just kind of thought it was annoying. And similarly later on, there's like another moment where there's a character who keeps like, it's like a robot who keeps getting something wrong and keeps starting from the start again, and all the characters are just waiting for it to get right. And again, I just thought, this isn't funny. I'm just annoyed.
Okay, but like all this stuff with Socks was great.
Socks was mostly funny. Socks was mostly good. Socks is the robot cat that he gets, for anyone who's curious. It is interesting, actually. Both this and Toy Story 4 had prominent cat inclusion.
They know what the people want.
Yes, Pixar has decided that cats are better than dogs, and I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. But red pandas are like even higher.
Well, they're more mythical, and you know.
Have you seen a red panda? They sleep on trees with like their limbs on either side. They're great. When they get spooked, they go like this.
So I don't want to sound too harsh, because I think it's perfectly watchable, and there's definitely some fun sequences and fun moments. I will say, just from a technology point of view, it definitely does feel like now, like when you watch a Pixar movie, like the cinematography is basically just the same cinematography you get in a regular movie, because now now they just know how to do all of it in the, you know, in the digital world, if you will.
Did you see The Good Dinosaur?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay. Although like the characters look really cartoonish, but the whole world just looks like it's filmed. It looks like a Roger Rabbit style because it's just so realistic, and that's kind of where I'm like, oh, we're just there now. That's you can't tell the difference at all.
Yeah, it's just things, the way it's like edited and being cut around. Because I think if you go back to original Toy Story, which is obviously a great movie, you could have, you know, that's 1995 CG animation versus 2022 CG animation. You definitely notice just a lot of little tricks that are used in regular live action movies are now implemented as techniques in digital films, even though they have to artificially create it because it's all made, you know, out of nothing. So, but it's interesting to see them do things like that, like, you know, having something like a lens flare where someone's kind of like in silhouette until they walk in front of the sun, and then you can finally see their face, like that's like Buzzy's first like shot effectively, and it's like, oh, that's actually quite impressive on a technology level that you can just do that now, as opposed to something that's a bit more simplistic. But so from a technology point of view, obviously it's up there at the highest possible tier because it's Pixar, and
also because this movie supposedly came out in 1995, we get buttons and switches and all the fun kind of machines and robots in the future. I like that.
Yeah, I almost wish there was like more 1995-ness about it, but I don't know how you do it, given that it's meant to be a fictional space movie that came out in 1995.
Do you want it to look like the animation style of 1995, where everything's just too smooth?
Nah, I don't want that, because it's meant to be a movie in 1995, so it can be slicker, right. But I don't know. Like, what if, I don't know how you do this in digital, admittedly, but what if you do something where it's like, it looks like a matte painting? You know, something like that. Yeah, like so you can see
they need Steven Kostansky, who did the Psycho Gorman, to direct a film for Disney.
Or like it's 1995, and CGI in 1995 in movies was terrible. What if they had like a really intentionally really bad CG thing, because it would be CG in the movie? Like,
yeah, that would be hilarious. I would have loved that. Just one of the aliens is just super choppy.
It just looks like shit.
It's just too smooth. There's no texture on the fur.
Admittedly, I don't know if this works in a CG film. I think it maybe, if you did this live action, you could probably do all these jokes and it would make sense. I think it would be funny to us because we're nerds and we would be getting the joke. I
definitely would have loved that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
if Socks was like looked like an actual robot instead of something that worked too well. Like, there's a puppet in this film.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. They could have played up the 1995 a little bit more. I just want one more thing. Like another movie this really reminds me of is another Pixar film, but the message kind of reminds me of Soul, which wasn't that long ago, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Sure. I mean, it is a bit different, but it's still kind of. I think that also makes it a bit more of a adult film.
Yeah, I was also getting like a little bit of up in the opening, like 20 minutes. Like, you know, there's like a sort of like sequence that plays out, and it's, you know, I was getting some up vibes, like they were going for the sad of like, oh, this is all happening and people are getting older and stuff.
Yeah, Yeah. I could see that. There's a much different reason for it, though, that I think...
Oh, sure, yeah.
You don't think about it right away, but when if you're just looking at it holistically, and I guess you're right, there is a bit of a time sequence going on. Not as sad, though. I don't think I felt sad once in this film, which I always expect in a Pixar film.
No, I think that's maybe an indication that it doesn't just hit you in the same way that their best stuff does. And I think just the choice of what the plot is for this movie, it does strike me as a bit weird. And maybe this goes back to my... If this is the movie Andy saw in 1995, it should be kind of like the in-universe Star Wars, or... I mean, 1995, that's the year the Power Rangers movie came out. That should be his Power Rangers, right? Because that's what I was into in 1995, you know? Like...
Yeah.
That should be what it feels like. And instead, it's kind of...
Yeah.
It feels more like the plot of... I mean, obviously, it's got a lot of things directly that we can compare to Lost in Space 1998. I wouldn't say it necessarily feels like that in terms of what it's trying to do tonally. It's more... I'm not saying it actually is cerebral, but I feel like it's mimicking science fiction films that are more cerebral. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's some reveals and stuff later on that are kind of wild and present some interesting ideas, but there's good things in it. There absolutely is, but ultimately,
I would say yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but ultimately, I just think it feels a little bit superfluous. Is that? Maybe that sounds harsh, but I think that's the word that I come back to. Even though there's clearly talent there's clearly quality in the movie, but it feels a bit superfluous.
I do like that we got, a science fiction Pixar film, though, that we get something set in space, something that looks kind of classic-y, and it's not too over plotty like a lot of new science fiction movies can be. It is very like grounded in a way for, a Space Ranger film. But I don't know, I guess I'm kind of grateful that it exists in a way, because I like to see all right, Pixar wants to make a sci-fi movie, let's see what we get. And it's not a bad film at all. I think people are disappointed that it's not up, it's not turning red, it's not like the thing that makes you cry or laugh a whole lot. But yeah, it's not going to be my favorite in the list of the hierarchy of Pixar films. It's definitely going to be above Cars and Planes, but it's probably a little bit better than Brave.
Sure.
Yeah. It's not going to be up there with the rest of the Toy Story franchise, but I think that's okay. I think it is still a pretty cool film. And I don't know, a lot of the kids that were in the theater when I watched it seemed a bit bored, but maybe there's some kid out there who's just like, this is the movie I needed. There
was one kid at my showing, and he was getting up and walking around a lot, so I don't think it was holding his attention very much.
Yeah, I had a kid next to me. His mother apologized like 3 times before I even sat down. She's like, it's his first movie. And he was dressed up as Buzz Lightyear, and he was just all over. He was running around. Couldn't stay still.
Oh, dear. Yeah. What was funny, actually, is I noticed the name of the director in this was Angus MacLane, and I thought, God, that is the most Scottish-sounding name I've ever heard.
MacLane.
Yeah, he's American. I looked him up. He's American, but Angus MacLane is like so Scottish as a name.
Is he known for anything else?
He's worked at Pixar for a while. I don't know if he's done like. I'll click on him and find out exactly. But
maybe it's like
he's mostly
Dory.
He's mostly credited in the animation department for a lot of other Pixar movies. As far as actual directing credits, he is the co-director of Finding Dory. And he directed 3 shorts. So he's not done much in the director's role, but he's done a lot just working at Pixar.
Did you see Finding Dory?
I haven't actually, no.
I think on my hierarchy, it's probably maybe a little bit better than Finding Dory to me. Because Finding Dory wasn't a bad movie at all and had a nice message.
You mean Finding Nemo?
I mean Finding Dory.
Oh, you mean Lightyear's better than Finding Dory? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Nemo's like up at the top somewhere. That movie's fantastic.
Finding Dory came out at a time when I was like kind of just not keeping up with Pixar. There was a point, it was probably just not long after Toy Story 3, where it kind of felt like, oh, they're doing a lot of sequels now. I just kind of stopped rushing to them as much as I was for the or for the 2000s, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah.
2010s was a little bit more held back. I've seen a lot of the ones that people have recommended by now. Not all of them. Still haven't seen Luca, but I did see Soul. I did see Turning Red. I did see what was that one? The Day of the Dead one.
Oh, Coco.
Coco,
That's a good
yeah,
one.
that's one. I saw Coco.
That one get the tears.
Yeah, I didn't see it at the time, but I saw it, I think, was it last year I saw it? Maybe 2 years ago? But, so they still make good stuff, but they definitely have, the golden era of Pixar, to me, really is, the, from the start to, to 2010. I think Toy Story 1 through Toy Story 3, outside of the Cars movies, right? Just ignore them.
What about Bug's Life?
I don't remember not liking that. I haven't seen it since I was 10 or 11, but
Bug's Life is good.
But if I remember correctly, it's just Seven Samurai with bugs.
That's right.
So I can't be mad at that on principle.
Yeah.
But they had so much in there. Ratatouille, Up, Wall-E, so much stuff, Incredibles in that period. It was just it was
Brave.
more. No, wasn't Brave a little bit later?
Brave was.
I think Brave was after Toy Story 3.
Yeah, that was 2011 or something, 2012.
Yeah, so exactly. The golden era ended with Toy Story 3.
Yeah, they must have been really next to each other, one right after the other. I'm not sure.
So, because there's that weird thing at the Oscars that year where Pixar just tends to win by default, but it was the first time where it felt like their movie probably shouldn't have won. Was Brave?
I don't remember. I still don't think that anybody comes close to Pixar. Maybe other than Disney. But they're the same now anyway. But
I mean, they've owned Pixar for 20 years at this point.
Yeah, it's just my sister works for DreamWorks and she loves DreamWorks films, and I get to see them sometimes with her employee screening and stuff. They're not good.
Well, except How to Train Your Dragon trilogy.
I don't like them.
No, they're great.
I don't like those movies either.
How to Train Your Dragon.
They're weird voice casting. It's not good. You just like it because it's a kitty cat disguised as a dragon.
How to Train Your Dragon, particularly 1 and 2, are up there with the best of Pixar. I will fight this. I will stand my ground and fight this.
They don't even come close.
I will stand my ground.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who are on your side.
I put on How to Train Your Dragon the first time I saw it as background noise because I just wanted something on. And after about 20 or so minutes, I had stopped what I was doing, I had turned off the lights, and I was paying attention. It grabbed me.
Put that on the poster.
It grabbed my attention. It clawed it when I was not ready to give it that much of a chance. And then 2 was a great theater experience. So, no, I will stick up for How to Train Your Dragon. I'm not... The rest of DreamWorks you can throw under the bus. Gru and his minions, you can...
Yeah. That's Illumination?
Oh, is that on DreamWorks? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just gotta... I'll be honest. I throw all the animation I don't care about under the DreamWorks bus, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I was never a Shrek fan. I just think those movies are terrible.
Yeah.
I know you hate them because you don't like Mike Myers. Because he insults your culture.
I mean, I just don't think they're very good either, to be honest.
Yeah, they're not funny.
No. Yes.
They're just annoying.
That Smash Mouth song was tied to Mystery Men before it was tied to Shrek, you bastards, and I will not give it up.
Okay.
And Mystery Men's kind of sci-fi. We have to do that one day.
Yeah, sure. It's been a long time. I saw it in the theaters.
Set in a futuristic city, it's just, it's got superheroes in it, which are kind of sci-fi, I guess. Well, that's a bit of a can of worms to open that. Superheroes are kind of sci-fi. There's a lot of things that we don't do on this show that could fall into that category.
We gotta do Superman one day, though. He is an alien.
Do we? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure people have heard me talk about Superman enough at this point, but...
He's an alien.
I suppose that's technically true. They'll have to give us some time, though. People need to be divorced from...
That's all right. We can hold on to the big guns.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean, this conversation has led to a lot of just general Pixar and animation discussion, just because we don't necessarily talk about this stuff that much. So I guess it's just natural that it, opens the door to talking about a lot of this genre that otherwise we don't really. I say genre, this slightly different medium that we're discussing. So
Perhaps we should.
Are you saying we should do more animated films? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, we've done a couple. We've done Wall-E, and we've done Meet the Robinsons.
Oh yeah, yes, I was forced into Meet the Robinsons. I was tricked.
It's a cute movie. We haven't done Iron Giant yet. We will.
Oh, don't worry. When we do all the Transformers, we'll start with the animated movie.
I mean, okay.
It's coming, guys. It's coming one day. All right, we should probably get into the rest of the movie then.
Let's do it.
Full spoilers for Lightyear from this point forth. You have been warned. So, yeah, this movie has basically, there's a giant ship with lots of people on it, and Buzz is in cryo sleep and whatever. And they get called down to distress call. A little bit alien, it's like, oh, there's a distress call. We have to go check it out. And the planet is hostile. There's like vines, poison ivy style, coming up and grabbing them constantly. And they try to leave, and Buzz and his hubris thinks he can make this insane turn with the ship to try and get away, but it goes into the mountain a little bit. They crash and they're marooned there. And the opening like half hour or whatever it is in the movie is effectively him trying to test new potential, they're not warp drives, but I'm going to call it a warp drive just for simplicity's sake.
Dilithium crystal.
Yeah. So yeah, basically their fuel source is destroyed, and there's like, okay, can we make an alternative that does the same thing based on the resources on this planet? So he keeps doing these so they're long enough that they're building up a little town. They've built up infrastructure. They've got like a laser dome. We'll hear about that eventually from the guy in charge later. He's really excited about his laser dome. But he keeps going out on these test flights, and he shoots around the sun. He's trying to hit the warp speed, and he doesn't quite make it. And he's determined to keep doing it, so he keeps doing it. But the caveat here is that every time Buzz does this, he loses time relative to others, because as we learned in Interstellar, relativity and all that, every time he comes back, even though it's only been a couple of minutes for him, it's been 4 years. So we get this montage playing of his like best friend and was Alicia. She like is aging by 4 years every time he comes back, and eventually it gets to a point where she's been married, she's got a kid, that kid's graduating. I guess they have colleges here now. I guess they built a school infrastructure.
Well, I'm sure she's not the only one having kids,
True. Yeah, so this all sets this up, and I was like, oh man, this is going to all be on this planet, isn't it? This is staying here. Because part of me thought, this is just the prologue, and then we're going to jet off and like set up a plot where Zurg's like trying to take over a planet or something, and Buzz is going to have to go be the hero, and it doesn't quite do that. It stays here, and it's a long time, because there was a point, probably a good like 40 minutes out of this movie, where I was starting to think, are they even going to do Zurg? Surely you do his arch nemesis. Like, why wouldn't you do Zurg?
Yeah, I had that same thought where I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. And
where's the evil Emperor Zurg?
And eventually some robots with a Z on their chest do show up, and you're like, okay, we're building up to it. It's fine. But yeah. it was kind of a weird choice. So eventually, though, you're expecting her not to be there. Alicia's not going to be there because she's getting old. She's going to be dead at some point. And he comes back, she's not there. And she leaves this message for him, and it's all sort of bittersweet. And there's a sort of, I think everyone, at least over a certain age, will see it coming, where, he's given this robot cat named Socks to look after him when he comes back from his first trip, because he may be depressed. And Buzz gives him something to do. He's like, hey, try and solve this formula problem for the fuel source. Not expecting him to do it. And of course, as soon as he does it, I'm like, he's going to, like, because we're going through all these time jumps, he's going to have just done this in about 20 years. Like, it's going to take him a long time, but this cat's going to solve this.
I think he said like 67 years or something.
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah, however long it was by the time he got there. I guess that makes sense, because the new main, like, sort of the new supporting character when he eventually does his final jump, is the granddaughter of his friend. So yeah, that sounds about right. 67 years sounds about right. And she's like a rookie, and he doesn't like rookies. That's set up at the start of the movie.
He doesn't like rookies. He doesn't like autopilots.
Yeah, that was a lot to explain, you know that, and that's only the first third of the movie, like in terms of premise.
Yeah, I mean it's that's the first what, I don't want to say like the first third of the film, but like it is your up scene though. It's the setup. It's that Buzz is obsessed with fixing this mistake he made by saying, but he can do it. He's the only one who can do it.
Yeah. You know, it's done well enough. It's, you know, eventually the cat gets it right, and the guy who's now in charge, who's replaced Alicia, doesn't want to let him go again. Like, he's shutting down the program. They're just accepting that they're living here, and that's okay. Buzz can't accept that, and when he discovers the cat has figured out the formula thing, like, he's like, okay, we have to sneak in and do it. We have to do it anyway, because, like, you know, we're going to do this. And sure enough, you know, he does it. It's a success. But when he gets back, he's jumped even further in time to the you know, when it's his granddaughter. Oh yeah, it couldn't be 67 years it took him, because that doesn't happen till after they've successfully tested it.
I mean, still could have happened, right?
Well, no, because we'd be way beyond his granddaughter at that point then.
She's like 25 or something when he comes back. 25 years old. And she was just a toddler almost when she got the recording from Alicia.
But yeah, but he's already figured out the formula before that though. Because that's with a successful jump that he comes back from, and then he meets the granddaughter. Yeah.
I swear I remember the cat saying it took him 67 years, but I did see this like 4 days ago.
Yeah, I'm sure that number does pop up. I'm just not convinced it's the number of time it takes the cat to solve the thing, just because it had to happen before the granddaughter was maybe not born, but certainly like early in her life. Yeah. So,
I mean, so he gets the message from Alicia, and like she's just a little girl, like crawling around on her lap and stuff, talking about space rangers. And then I think she says she's like 26 or something later on, and that's the jump where he went really far. Yeah, that's the successful, you know, warp drive jump where he's skipped over more time than he did before. And that's when the robots attack him, and it turns out the robots have been attacking the city, so they're all on lockdown. And so the granddaughter, Izzy, played by Keke Palmer, she is like, you know, the young, bright, she's really optimistic, she wants to be a space ranger and really wants to befriend Buzz right away. And Buzz just keeps sitting, you know, like, no, you have to get back to base, I'll have to do it, I'm a space ranger, you know, like, and then for a little while though, he thinks that she is a proper like space ranger, or the equivalent anyway, and she introduces him to her team, which is the other two main characters of the film, which is Mo, played by Taika Waititi, and Darby Steele, who's like this old lady who's really like tough and gruff and whatever. But then finds out that they're actually like cadets, and they're basically just started training. They're like ROTC cadets. Yeah. Like really. I think they've done. It's like getting Boy Scouts or something. Yeah. So that kind of sets up our little team of characters that sort of stick with them, along with the cat, obviously, who's still around. Yeah. There's another robot also, but you mentioned him earlier as one of the comic relief things. He's introduced as part of the crew, but kind of disappears. Yeah, he gets left behind because he's trying to give Buzz directions to where like a possible fuel source or a ship is or something, and yeah, very quickly they just sort of leave without him, and then he never pops up again, I don't think so. Right. But I thought that scene was pretty unfunny, so I was glad that he never popped up again. I mean, it was okay. I didn't hate it. It was some of that drawn out humor. Maybe it's because I've seen similar jokes done enough at this point, or I'm like, I think it's just also like Buzz has these expectations, like, oh, this is a robot, so it's gonna have all the answers that I need, and it doesn't. Yeah. Just another expectation of the crew. Yeah. That's disappointed. What's interesting, he doesn't have a blaster yet, and he obviously doesn't have the wings yet,
but they do have like invisibility cloaking on the suits, but that's really high tech. Like,
is that something from the movies? I can't remember. It has been a while since I've seen the Toy Story films. Yeah,
I don't remember.
Is there a moment where Buzz thinks that he's invisible?
Oh no, I understand that. I think you're right. Yeah, it obviously doesn't work, but yeah, he presses the button and says,
right,
I'm
okay,
invisible now.
yeah.
I think so.
I kind of wish I watched the trilogy again, because it hasn't been too long since I've seen 4, but he's not Buzz Lightyear in 4. He's what he's post Buzz Lightyear. So I kind of wish I watched at least Toy Story again before I watched this, so I can make all the connections. There were some things that I remembered, like who Zurg is supposed to be based on Toy Story 2 and stuff like that.
I was going to say Toy Story 1's the only one you need to watch, but Toy Story 2 does have the Zurg stuff in it, so maybe you need a little bit of Toy Story 2 as well, just to prime you for everything in this. You probably don't need Toy Story 3, but I mean, it's good. So
unless you want Spanish Buzz Lightyear.
Sure. Oh man, the Spanish dub for this should be like should be based on whatever the Spanish was on that.
Yeah.
Was it Toy Story 2 yet? Or was it that 3? It had the
Toy Story
Spanish.
3.
That was the Spanish one. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So there's a lot going on, right? And they got the robots, you got all this stuff, and it's like, man, there was a lot of setup to get to this status quo. There was a lot of setup to get us to the point where there's like robots, and there's like an evil ship in the sky where the robots are coming from, and obviously we're telling a story here where the point of the story is that Buzz is going to accept, because basically he's thinking that he's worthless if he's not a space ranger, and that there's nothing here for him, but he's going to ultimately learn that no, he's made new friends, these people matter, Izzy matters, like this is life that came here, and his friend Alicia like didn't compromise, she had a good life, and he has to kind of accept these things, like he was never willing to move on and accept that this is the new thing.
Well, I think a lot of it is that he just sort of missed it. Like we're following from Buzz's perspective, and he's constantly trying to do this thing to help all the people that are left behind, or that he stranded, that he marooned on this planet. And that's dangerous too. So he's obsessed with trying to fix this. Meanwhile, he's missing decades of what's happening on the planet, and they're having children, establishing a colony. They're happy. That's why, like, whatever 80 years passes by, and the guy's like, we don't need to leave, we just need to make sure we're protected here. This is what we're focusing on. And he's played off as the villain at first, but you're kind of like, maybe they're happy.
But there's some analogy stuff there to like dig into. This idea that Buzz, like the representation of him missing this time, is kind of like someone who cuts himself off from everyone else when there is like maybe like a shared tragedy or a shared thing that everyone has to move on from. So the idea that he's missing time, obviously he's not doing it intentionally per se, but ultimately, unlike everyone else, because when you actually compare how long it takes him in the movie to finally kind of realize this and sort of accept that this is just the status quo, it's probably not that different. It might even be quicker than everyone else got to that point in like the actual timeline, but because he was skipping all this time and he wasn't experiencing the time pass, he couldn't get over it. He couldn't let himself heal. You have to accept the tragedy or accept the truth before you can actually move on.
And all the people who might have even been upset with him that he's the reason that they're stranded there, I mean, by the time he's done, they're all gone. Like it's all the people who were born there that are left.
Yeah, it's all this new generation.
This is all they know. This is home, and I think that's I don't know. It's a cool message. Like I said, it kind of reminds me of Soul, of just accepting like you don't have to have this great big purpose in life, because then if you're constantly focused on that, you might miss just enjoying the little things in life.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I like that is kind of there, and maybe because they've done a similar message recently is why it doesn't register as much, or it feels a little bit, it's so convoluted in the story, of course, and they do the thing where there's a little bit of even Moon, perhaps, in a sense, where you have eventually two Buzzies sort of with different experiences kind of comparing and contrasting, but there's a lot of moving parts to get us to this point, and I don't think it's the neatest or cleanest setup that it could have been. You know, it feels a little bit messy to get to a certain point, because you don't even get to start really going through the journey of the movie. Like, you know, it feels like the prologue does last like 25 minutes before you actually start getting to grips with who these characters are, to the point where some of the characters, like Izzy for example, like I like her well enough, but it does feel she's introduced really late in the movie, for given that she's supposed to kind of be like the person that he really bonds with over the course of the story. It's kind of weird that she's not there until like 35-40 minutes into the damn thing. And maybe that's splitting hairs, I don't know, but it's just one of those things where I think when you're watching it and you're sort of experiencing the story play out, I think part of you feels that you're still in the prologue and you're still like doing the setup, and you're like, okay, when is the kind of the, I don't want to say the real movie, because that's not fair. Like, the prologue is still a real part of the movie. It's still important in any movie, but there's definitely a feeling of, okay, when are we going to start developing the things that are actually going to go forward, as opposed to making it feel like some stuff is just kind of tacked on. And I think the twists with Zurg later, because the whole plan with them is that they're going to try and like to destroy the ship, to stop all the robots, and then Buzz is going to get his fuel source and put it in a ship and go and like save everyone, and or put it into the big ship and go and save everyone, whatever the exact plan is. It's been 2 days now. I'm fuzzy on the intricacies, but when they do eventually end up on the ship, and it feels like once the robots start seeing Buzz, they start to sort of target him. So there's kind of a hint, okay, Zurg cares about who this is. And they do some fun stuff. Like, Zurg's always in silhouette for a while, and you see sort of the shape, and you're like,
Zurg.
Yeah.
I like the way the robots speak.
So, but when it's revealed what Zurg actually is, because obviously in Toy Story 2 they do the Star Wars joke where he's like, I am your father. So
No.
when the Zurg suit opens and it's an old, like, you know, it's like an old guy who looks like Buzz, I thought, oh, they're doing the thing, it's his father. This is what Toy Story 2 said. But then they pull the Lost in Space thing where it's like, no, this is old Buzz who is developed to this point.
He even calls him Dad first. He's like, Dad?
yeah, he even thinks he's Dad, yeah. But the idea being here that this older Buzz never got to meet Izzy and these other characters, never got to see the life that they had. This is a splinter Buzz that grew up kind of separate from that, because he sort of grew from right at the start after the tragedy happened. So he's the one who's just been obsessed with fixing it and solving all the problems, but never went through the human part that this Buzz has went through. And, you know, the whole point is that you get to compare the idea of, like, this is a Buzz who got to see the almost literal fruit of, like, what this society blossomed in these new younger characters who are worth saving. Although the old woman might have been around, I don't know, she's quite old.
Maybe.
But the others definitely not. Whereas, you know, older Buzz is like, no, we need to do this, we need to reset everything. And the big science fiction moment is like him saying, yeah, we're going to reset all this so it never happened. It'll be like we never crashed. And then Buzz has to kind of accept, but wait a minute, that means these characters that I have bonded with and interacted with, you know, Izzy is this great person, will never exist. Like, that family that my friend Alicia built and raised will never exist if I take that away by resetting time. It's
a cool science fiction concept too. It'd be like, oh, this is a real, like, thing that we have, that, you know, is it worth it now? Kind of like the, you know, the Final Countdown film, where it's like, do they interfere with, because of the time travel thing, and stop Pearl Harbor from happening, or do they let things play out because, you know, some of them they all have families, like maybe they shouldn't even exist, you know, at that point if they change history. You know, what is the ethical decision here? Like, if you have an opportunity to stop something from happening and change history, but it means, like, yeah, people won't exist anymore.
Yeah, I'd even compare it a little bit to Avengers Endgame. You know, like, Tony's willing to, like, go back and try and, you know, go back in time and try and fix everything, but he doesn't want to erase the last 5 years, because that would mean losing his daughter. Yeah,
there's a rom-com film with time travel also that I can't quite remember. It's more of like a father-son story, but like it's written by the guy who did like the Love Actually, or maybe directed by that guy.
About Time,
yes. Also has that in it.
Yeah.
It's quite good, quite emotional.
I mean, I've never seen that one, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting concept. I mean, it's not an original concept. I mean, we've just named multiple things.
Also Lost in Space.
And also Lost in Space. Yeah, that's the
almost
other.
exactly Lost in Space, actually.
Yeah, because Lost in Space.
I think it is Will Robinson who's obsessed with not getting lost in space, and
he's the old man. Yeah, the encounter. Yeah. I mean, it's been a
grows
while.
up to be Jared Harris.
So I'm a bit vague in a lot of the details because I wanted to have seen that film. But
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I don't remember if Will Robinson is the reason they're stranded. I can't remember, but like I said, it's been so long. I assume not. But
okay, yeah, I can't remember, but yeah. So this is introduced and. It's like, okay, this is kind of an intriguing idea that presents him with this clear choice where he's going to have to disagree with himself. So, which, makes the message and makes the lesson that he's learning and the value that came out of everything after they get marooned. It wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't this disaster that ruined everyone's lives. Like they formed this new society, and things are okay. Obviously, the idea at the end of the movie still ends with them being able to go back out of space. The idea that, okay, to put it in Star Trek terms, they've kind of reached the point where they can rejoin the Federation because they've developed their space travel again. So the end of the movie is them, him and his team launching into space, and now they can, intermingle with
they're
whatever.
Not starting from like year zero. They have technology and stuff, and this planet's just full of resources. So long as they can pass on, the education
But that's effectively what it is, though, right? Is that they've reached the point again where they can start intermingling with the intergalactic community again because now they have space travel.
Yeah.
So it's like, because you have to wonder, like, surely there's like a lot of like people that were on that ship originally with family members, and they've now got their own like descendants who will find out, oh, by the way, you've got like cousins over on this planet we discovered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what did they ever name the planet? I can't remember.
I don't know. Planet Vines? Planet Murder Vine.
Planet Zurg.
Zurg. I like those robots.
Yeah, and then obviously some big action sequences. We kind of skipped to talk about all the big ideas, but there's the whole big section where they're getting something from like it's like a factory or the where they've had a lot of they dump all their old tech or vehicles or something. I think it's an old mining place or something like that. But the big
they're
robots
constantly trying to find a ship, and it keeps going south.
But the big robots attacking and the whole thing's like tipping. That's because that's where they get trapped in the security bubbles, and they're trying to like catch the it's like a fuse or something for the ship. They're trying to get it all working.
That was a neat little technology thing.
It's
seems very dangerous. Also, being that there's no one there to let them out.
Did you was there more to this joke about like the sandwich where they've inverted the bread and the meat?
It's the worst idea ever.
Yeah.
I was getting 3 Seashell vibes from Demolition Man. Just like, this makes sense to us. It doesn't make sense to you? I think they just wanted to have a joke kind of like that.
Yeah, but it's only been like 2 generations since the last. Like, how did this change? Like, what? How did this like so drastically change? Like,
I don't know.
Like,
it just seems like a really poor idea. It's just so sticky.
Aye. Well, I mean, Taika says that. Gooey hands is the best part. I'm like, no, it's not. That sounds awful. Sounds terrible. I mean, maybe the idea is it's supposed to tie into like Buzz accepting something different. As silly as it is.
Maybe something that seems awkward and uncomfortable. Maybe it's all right. Yeah, kind of like rookies or autopilots. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I like that's fine. It is what it is. There's big actions. Obviously, when he starts fighting him, like he's the old version of himself, and he's trying to keep the fuel source away from him. He ends up ejecting it of one of the ships, and that's what gives him his wings. He ends up with just a makeshift blaster on his arm that he sort of taped onto his arm. And then at the end of the movie, when they've like redesigned the suits, they've actually built it in, and it's got the red light like you've seen in the toy kind of thing. I did kind of like that they all had different color suits. Like, it was the Buzz Lightyear suit, but like one was kind of grey blue, one was like orange. So it just made them all feel a bit different. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Some design choices that were kind of neat.
Oh yeah, I agree. I liked at the end where he's trying to make them So like everybody's falling towards the planet, and in order for for the landing to be okay, he has to glide, kind of like the end of Toy Story. We're not falling. We're what is it? Or we're not. I can't remember.
We're not
falling with style.
We're not flying. We're falling in style.
Yeah, that's it. Because you got the gliding going on. I thought it was kind of a cute callback.
Yeah. Yeah, all the action towards the end is solid. The team are running around on the ship, and there's antics and blasting. Honestly, a lot of it is merged together in my head, so I can't really point out any specific moments, which is maybe something you can say is like it's not that memorable. But
do you think the obviously he hates rookies and stuff, but did you think all the characters kind of had something about himself that he hated, but like times 100? Because Taika Waititi, like his thing is that he's clumsy, and he always accidentally starts like a chain reaction of bad things because of something he did, which kind of is like what the reason like Buzz is obsessed with trying to fix his one mistake. And like Izzy is just not as confident as she appears to be. Like she's actually not as good as at the job that she thinks he is, or he thinks she is, or something. And maybe the woman, I can't remember her name at the moment, Darby. Maybe she's just like the part of him that rebels against authority, because she's kind of a criminal. That's her thing, is that she's been, basically locked up, and she does this Space Command stuff as like a community service almost. I don't know. I thought maybe that was an interesting thought.
No, I agree. I don't have anything to add to it, but I agree. It's definitely there. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's why Buzz is so like resistant to them. He calls them, it's just because they're rookies and stuff, and they're in my way. But really, it's just kind of extension of parts of himself he doesn't like. I
mean, the whole reveal with the villains is that the idea is the whole thing's about self-reflection. So the idea that all these characters that he teams up with all represent a different part of him, yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. I also like, we haven't talked about Socks enough. I also like that Socks is just a robot. Like, he's sure he's a cat and he's designed to have a certain thing, but he's still a robot and he's got personality and he's able to do like these complex things. And, he's a Swiss Army knife also. He has whatever you need. And every time it's hilarious when he pops out like a blowtorch or something.
Yeah, he uses lights a number of times. That's kind of the thing he uses the most often, to be honest.
Yeah, but I like that. Yeah, you want me to solve this complicated thing? Give me enough time. I'm a robot. I can do it. I've got a supercomputer built in me.
Yeah, and so yeah. I mean, I'm sorry to say that I'm struggling to find much more to really say about it, to be honest. I mean, there's a couple of key sequences. There's the whole bit where they're all invisible and they're trying to sneak past the big spider things that are like in the old ship depot, whatever it is, and the shield run out before they can get to the exit, so they have to run back, and because they're going to separate from Buzz. Buzz is saying, no, you go that way, I'm going towards the ship to go save the day. But they get lumped with them anyway because of this, and it's kind of his mistake because he doesn't tell them there's a time limit on it. He just kind of is like, yeah, press this button, you'll be invisible. It's like, oh wait a minute, only last 90 seconds. Shit, I should have probably mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just another thing where Buzz is just not able to play as part of the team. Like, he's just taking on all the responsibility on himself.
Yeah, it's not so much that he's so egotistical. Well, maybe he is egotistical, but I think in this case it's more this that he puts all the burden on himself. He puts too much weight on his own shoulders, and it's like, I should be strong enough to carry all this weight on my own. But the whole point is that no, you're not on your own, and maybe that's the true heart of the film, is that like you have to share the burden with other people. Otherwise, you're just it's a one-way ticket to therapy. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which is a nice enough idea. It really is. I don't know if the messages of this film, though, I think maybe it's too conflicted between being that cerebral sci-fi with these ideas or being the heartwarming Disney Pixar movie with these ideas. And because it's kind of a mashup of both of those things, they kind of feel like they're pushing and pulling a little bit. So it's not amazing at either one. It's just okay at both.
I mean, I'd agree that it's not as it's not like, obviously it's not up there with the higher Pixar's. Kind of already talked about that, but I do think this movie's really clever, and I think it looks really good, and I think I like the characters, and the more that I talk about it, the more I like it, I think. So I definitely don't see why people dislike this movie so much, unless they were just had really high expectations for some sort of like Star Wars, like you said.
Yeah, or they're just mad because Alicia's gay and has a wife, and
there is a same-sex kiss in this, which is definitely not 1995, but it should have been, so that's okay.
Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, Sally was going to complain about that. Yeah, and what's so funny about it is that we talked about the whole movie and didn't even mention that, because it is relatively a minor thing in the story.
Oh, totally.
It's just not a big deal
of it
at all. But of course, it's a big deal to people for all the wrong reasons. So, and of course, to a certain audience, it's also a big deal for all the right reasons as well, I suppose, when you think of it that way. I mean, it is Pride Month after all.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm sure there's many people who saw that and felt, comforted or listened to, or whatever someone feels.
Is that the first time this has been in a Pixar movie? I know there was like an implied gay character in Beauty and the Beast, and that's why it was like banned in China, because two men danced together at the end of the movie for like 3 seconds. But yeah, I guess this is the first time we see a same-sex kiss in an animated film. And actually, the movie Luca is very it's got a lot of subtext.
Oh, sure. Okay.
We'll say that.
I didn't know we were going with that. I haven't seen it yet, but
you haven't seen it yet, yeah. But I think that's something that people also kind of felt seen watching.
Yeah. It's funny though, because it never even registered to me when it happened. Like, to be honest, like when I saw someone mention it as the first gay kiss in a Pixar movie, I was kind of like, oh, I guess it did. But it never. It
doesn't seem like it should be a big deal anymore. And
no.
I don't think I even would have recognized it until like it's Buzz Lightyear when she says, "Oh, I'm seeing someone," or "I'm married." I can't quite remember. And he says, "Oh, who is she?" I'm like, "Oh, she's gay." That's like the only time it registered. Even the kiss thing like didn't register to me at all.
Yeah, he already knows. He doesn't react to it in any way. It's one of those things where obviously this is coming from, we're not part of the LGBT community, right? So obviously us not noticing doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. Obviously people who care about it are going to notice more than we do. I think the point I'm trying to make by saying that we barely noticed it is because it feels like it should already be a normal thing. It feels like it should already be something that's like not even thought about or whatever, but it's this political thing now that it's the first time it's happened. But it's such a, like it's like,
oh no, Pixar's gone woke. It's so dumb.
Oh dear. My patience for that type of discourse right now is at an all-time low, because so you're familiar with The Boys, right? The TV show. Right.
I haven't watched it. I watched the pilot.
Yeah, there's an audience right now. Season 3 is currently like in the process of coming out, right? It's about halfway through the season. And there's an audience right now because they're being like overt with something they're doing with the character of Homelander, who's like the evil Superman, who's this awful character. He always has been. He's kind of it's a very satirical show with a lot of social commentary. It's very good at doing that as well, may I add. But there's a certain portion of audience that think that The Boys is going, and I hate this word, quote unquote, woke, because it's getting political, and the way that Homelander in the show is now appearing to white males, right? They're sort of making a point being that a certain type of character in the show is now being attracted to this guy and what he represents. And it's absurd because The Boys, because they're saying, oh, it's getting political now. The Boys has been extremely political since the very first episode. It is insane that you couldn't see this, and like to the point where some people are even saying, "Oh, Homelander was a cool guy before. Now they're painting him as this villain." No, he was an evil psychopath the entire time.
I only watched the pilot and I picked up on that. I'm like, oh, this is not Superman.
No, he is awful. He is self-centered.
I thought it was going towards an orgy, not political.
He's a narcissist. He's got he's so insecure. Like he is everything. Like there's a whole thing you could talk about. Like so I'm seeing that with that. It comes back every so often with Star Trek or X-Men. It's like, oh, why is this political now? I was like, I'm sorry, Star Trek and the X-Men were always political from the day they were created. It was kind of their point.
You were just young and stupid.
Oh dear.
Now you're older and stupid.
So it shouldn't be a big deal, but it is. I'm glad it's there. But you know, it's a whole mess of feelings. Anyway, the point is if you're mad that there's a gay couple in a Disney movie or a Pixar movie, then I don't know.
Well, I think it's just, it's, advertised as the first or whatever on whatever platforms. But like we've had so many firsts now in all sorts of shows and movies and franchises. And I don't know, it kind of loses its luster. It doesn't seem exciting. It just kind of seems normal now. How many firsts do we get here?
You know what? You cut me off there, but it's probably a good thing because I was about to tell people to go. I was about to say something really mean.
Huh? You were going to say something mean?
Yeah, because I said if you don't like that this is here, I was going to say that then you can go and. So you probably cut me off at a really good point just before I said something controversial myself.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Aye, yeah, I don't believe you for a second, but that's okay. So I mean, obviously it's notable, and that's a good thing. It doesn't necessarily, it's not indicative of any of the writing quality or anything else that's going on in the movie, but it's there, and it's something that should be kind of pointed out and acknowledged, and even celebrated even. So
yeah,
cool.
I mean, I was kind of saying like it just feels like it doesn't feel special anymore because we've had so many first, but maybe I'm not the person to say that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's obviously it's the first in Pixar, but I think in movie and TV in general, I feel like there's tons of good characters now. I feel like I see a lot of them.
Just normal.
Yeah.
Just like real life,
Which is cool, but it doesn't necessarily feel special on its own. But I guess we're not the ones who are necessarily keeping track of who's not doing it, and that's kind of the point. Is that Pixar up until now we're not doing it, and there's a certain point where you feel like, are they going out of their way not to do it? And it's not necessarily Pixar, maybe the Disney overlords that are saying no, don't do this.
But I wonder also if Disney is like, because Disney World was in some heat in Florida because of the "Don't Say Gay" thing, and Disney didn't speak up at first. I mean, this movie was ready before then and stuff, but maybe it's just a little bit of a see, we're okay.
Well, it was the same thing in the MCU. Is that the first gay character was like that that tiny extra played by a director in like the start of Endgame, where there's just a casual mention of like his boyfriend. That's right.
Yeah, and that was one of the Russos.
And it was a little bit like, wait, like you're trying to get praise for this character who's in one scene. I don't know if there's a bit.
I think Feige has said that there is a gay superhero when we've already met them, but we don't know exactly. They haven't come out yet or something.
Well, Loki came out as bi in his TV show.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah.
So there's that, but it's like it was the same thing though with like having like a woman as a lead in a Marvel movie. Like there's been 2 now, but it took a long time before we got Captain Marvel. Like there was there was like 17, 18 movies before there was a woman led superhero movie from Marvel. So which is like, nothing has to be 50-50 per se. It's not about keeping track of numbers, but like that is an obscene ratio.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, and obviously this stuff's all important to talk about, but I think in this case specifically, it's also a bit more interesting in the film itself, which is fine. It's a fine movie, but it's not that interesting or exciting.
I think it's interesting and exciting. The movie's pretty good.
I'm happy for you, I am, but I think I think it exists. I think it is of a serviceable quality because it's Pixar and they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing special about it by any means.
It definitely doesn't feel like it's part of that Toy Story world. That's all. It does feel like its own thing with a familiar name.
Yeah.
Given and Zurg has legs in this, which is weird.
Given how it's performing, I guess there's probably not going to be like a sequel to it. Even though they may have been hoping that this could be like there could be a trilogy of like Buzz Lightyear films or something like that.
It feels pretty standalone to me. I guess it could set up like, we have our space rangers now, because now also Buzz is like put in charge of like training the new Space Ranger units, and he picks his team, and it's the ragtag group of characters we like.
I mean, when I say they, I really mean Disney. Like, I mean the money people. Like, I think if this was like breaking records, or if it was doing really well financially, there'd be a second one. There just would be.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how standalone Pixar made it in the first place. They would have found a way.
We'll get the Woody's Roundup movie also.
They could do everything. There could be like a Bo Peep movie. There could be.
That was Toy Story 4.
That was pretty Bo Peep centric. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I don't know.
Rex. We get the Rex movie.
Isn't that just like toy Jurassic Park?
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. It was bugging me actually when I was watching Toy Story 4. I was like, oh damn, what's that guy's voice? Like, I know that actor. And I looked at him, I was like, oh yeah, I know his face. Like, I could never have told you his name, but I'm like, yeah, like I knew that guy's voice.
Oh,
He's got a real distinct voice.
Of Rex?
Yeah, Rex. The small bald guy. Inconceivable? What?
The Inconceivable. You've never seen Princess Bride?
I have, but it's been a long time. Yeah, he's in Princess Bride. Yeah, he's in that.
Wallace Shaw. That's it.
I've only seen that movie once though. It's been a long time, so I haven't taken it in.
My sister and my father were like years ago. Were at Costco, where we live in Southern California, and they were looking at all the TVs, and they were playing the Princess Bride on them, and they were just like hanging out there wasting time. And the guy next to him goes, "Hey, I'm on TV," and it was Wallace Shaw.
That's just pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
I was just looking down his credit. Apparently, I've got 7 episodes of Deep Space Nine with him in it to look forward to.
He is the Grand Nagus. They are not the most popular episodes, but I like them because Ferengi episodes, love them or hate them.
Okay.
And I love Star Trek.
Do you know what? I think what I otherwise knew him from was probably the Clueless TV show, because he's in that.
Oh, I never knew that they made a TV show for Clueless.
I saw a TV show long before I ever even knew there was a movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think the supporting cast from the movie are in it, but it was a different lead.
I got my own socks here.
Yeah.
Trying to sabotage.
As do I. I got Firefly running around. All right. I mean, I think we're pretty much done talking about Lightyear.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's, it exists. It's fine. It's not offensive. Unless you're a homophobe, in which case I guess it is. But for everyone else, it's not offensive. Tara, what are you rating Lightyear?
Yeah, I think Lightyear's pretty good. I think it's worth watching. I think it's a fun science fiction adventure film with a nice message, actually. And I enjoyed the voice work, and I enjoyed the movie. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I think it's pretty good. Check it out.
Okay. I think I'm gonna go a point lower. I'm gonna say 6.5. I'm tempted to go 7, but I think it just feels a little bit. Just there's something just missing to even just call it outright good. Which I would say a 7 out of 10 is. I would say it's just a little south of that. So I'll say 6.5.
All right, fine. Be like everyone else.
I'm not being like everyone else. People are giving it like 5s on IMDb, or even less. Even I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, but those people hate the gays. And you don't.
It's sure. It was better than Jurassic World Dominion. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So there's that. But hey, it's all right because I got the Avatar trailer when I went to see this, and
yeah, it's beautiful, right?
Avatar. So just look forward. We're the Avatar 1 before Avatar 2 comes out, and we are both Avatar defenders. So,
do you know what Screen X is?
Screen X.
Yeah, I've not seen a movie in a Screen X screen before, but it's got 3 panels, so you're like totally immersed in the film, and only certain films you can watch that way, I guess. And apparently, Maverick you can see that way, and it's been very popular, and the seats move and stuff when you watch it.
D-box style seats.
It's like D-box, yeah. So I have seen a D-box theater or screen before. Can't remember one of the Pirates movies I saw, and it's okay, but I kind of want to see the Avatar trailer like that. Maybe I'll see Avatar that way if I can.
Yeah,
But at least the trailer.
I never saw a movie in D-Box, but they had like a little you could sort of watch a trailer with D-Box in the foyer. They had like like a couple of chairs set up to sort of test it, because it costs like it was like £4 or £5 extra for a ticket to get to the D-Box showing or something. So you had to like really want to do it. So it was like it was a fun gimmicky thing for a trailer. I don't know if I'd want to sit and watch a whole movie.
I mean, I kind of get used to it. I saw the Pirates movie that was like after the trilogy with mermaids in it. I saw that one.
The fourth one or something.
Something like that. Some mermaid's curse, whatever.
Bedman's Chair? Is that the third one? I don't know.
I think so. I think that's the third one. And
not my franchise.
I know I saw a horror film, but I can't remember which one in D-Box. It's when I worked at the theater, and like we had one theater that had the first 2 rows were just D-Box, and the rest of it was just the normal seats. And the horror one was weird because you kept like getting tossed just a little bit back at like a slow rate, and then like thrust you forward during a jump scare, or like thrust you back during a jump scare. It was weird. I can't say that I enjoyed it. Like, it enhanced the picture very much. It was fine for the adventure film, you know. So you're like moving around. I imagine for Maverick, it's actually pretty cool.
All the plane stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Get to hold your breath during those G's. You gotta watch Maverick, man. It's really good. I saw it twice.
I'll see it when it's at home. I'm not rushing out.
Ah, you disappoint Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise can cry into $100 bills if he wants.
Yeah, he earns his money, right? He earns his wealth.
Stop sticking up.
He's a monster.
Yeah, stop sticking up for the crazy Scientologist. Stop it. No need for this. But yes, so yeah, 6.5 for me, 7.5 for me. Which is to say, it's not a bad movie. It's just it's just nothing special either. So, yeah, I keep your expectations in check, and you'll probably have an okay time with it. But that's about it. So there you go. That is Lightyear.
That's right.
Let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments or whatever, or on Twitter at Screams Midnight. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers. Tara's giving me such a weird smile right now.
I'm trying to balance this glass of water that my cat has decided to drink from.
Okay.
Okay, Gus. You're ruining the show.
Yeah, Gus. We did. All right. Thank you to our Patreon producers: Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Trisman, and Alison M. Fordyce. I'm getting distracted by Tara holding up cats. Of course, you could be a patron at a lower tier and get other things, can't you, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV, where if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus reviews, including your favorite B-movie sci-fi films like The Guyver, Free Jack, the Tremors sequels. We did the first one on this regular channel, but you can get all the sequels with the exception of the latest one because we haven't done that yet. And the Transfer Saga, that was fun. All sorts of films. Plus you get some horror movies not reviewed by myself, but by somebody else. And yeah, if that interests you, head over and check that out. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these reviews early by a day, and some other stuff you get early, and you get to vote on what we watch once a month. So please check that out. Be part of our community. It's great.
Yeah, there's also a Male Fuzz Reddit now, a subreddit if you want to go and join that.
Oh, who talked you into that?
I even set it up. David set it up. I just, he's like, hey, I made a subreddit. I was like, oh, okay. So,
cool.
So that exists. Also, I feel like you almost wanted to throw a dig at a certain Streams After Midnight co-host there.
I know you want this to happen.
But you held back.
This beef to happen, and you've been
I don't want this
stoking
beef.
this. You've been stoking this fire. I listened to the reviews, man. I know. And Tim is all into it, and I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that.
Tim started it. I'm just trying to get you to fire back a little bit. That's all.
Well, he doesn't watch these, so or I don't think he does anyway. Why would he?
I don't think it. Oh, I think he said he wanted to go listen to the Jurassic World episode because he hated that movie and he wanted to hear all
I didn't hate it. I mean, I didn't like it either, but I didn't give it overall negative reviews, so I'm sure. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
If he wants to start beef, so be it. But it's not going to be because of you.
I have done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing. All right, go on. Ask me the question you always want to ask me at the end.
I saw you opening up windows over there. What's coming up next, Peter?
Well, we got the vote winner to do for the month, and speaking of Tom Cruise, it was a Tom Cruise movie that won the vote.
Ooh.
So we will be doing Oblivion from
From the director
13?
of Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, is it? Oh, there you go. That's
For sure.
it. That's a bit of synchronicity for you.
Yeah.
Or synergy, as the people actually say.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yeah. Synergy, synchronicity. I think it works.
I'll live with it. Alright, there you go. That is just coming next week. We're doing Oblivion. And we'll see if the future that looks like it's designed by Apple how the movie is. I saw it in theaters when it came out. I haven't seen it since. I'll tell you what I'm excited for though, because M83 did the score, and I really like M83.
I've seen this movie before. I don't remember disliking it. I remember a lot of people saying it wasn't good, and then I watched it and I'm like, why do people say it wasn't good? But
well, next week we'll find out, shall we?
Yeah.
So join us for that. And of course, yes, I feel there's something else I wanted to promote. I've forgotten what it is now. That doesn't matter. I'm sure if it's important, I'll remember to promote it next week. That has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the science fiction movie podcast. Thank you for joining us. Keep watching sci-fi, and computer, add salsa.